Okay, let's do a Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. Norm in London, Mike in Buffalo. The NHL trade deadline has come and gone. We have some new Maple Leafs and Scott Lawton and Brandon Carlo. You know what? I'm happy to see that the Maple Leafs made the alterations to the organization that you had advocated for, Mr. Augello, into Colorado last night, and it was a scoring, high flying affair, both ends of the ice, crowded with offense. In the end, it was the Avalanche who got the job done. Man, that is a unbelievable force to be reckoned with, especially when they're playing in Denver. The beat goes on for the Leafs. 3 straight losses with the new guys in tow. It's on to Utah Monday night. How you feeling, sir?
Good morning, Norm. Well, I think the Leafs made some progress with the deadline. I know that a lot of people are concerned, but the thing is, you see the contending teams out there: Colorado, Dallas, Florida, Tampa, Toronto. All of them traded multiple draft picks going forward to, 3 drafts, going 26, 27 drafts. The Leafs have traded their 2 first-round picks in 26 and 27. So did Tampa, so did Colorado, so did Dallas with the Rantanen trade. So everybody is following Cliff Fletcher's draft schmaft moniker. And I see, the thing is, I understand it from the point of view of some of these teams where they've got a core group in their mid to late 20s, and they need to build around it by getting 2 or 3 players. And they basically are saying, well, these draft picks aren't going to help us until 4 or 5 years down the road. So why not trade the draft picks, use them as assets? I get that. And in that instance, the Leafs, with the 2 deals that they made, Lawton, I think that you saw the center market, and you saw Yanni Gourde going for a couple first-round picks and a second-round pick along with Bjorkstrand to Tampa. You saw Seth Jones go to Florida for a first-round pick. You see Brad Marchand going to Florida for a future possible first-round pick. Dallas with Rantanen, Colorado with Coyle and Brock Nelson. So all these teams did the same thing because they have a core group they think that can win now, and they needed those 2 final pieces of the puzzle. They paid a little bit higher than I would have liked for Lawton, who's, I think, a good third line, but limited guy, not a great offensive player. But he's physical. He's a penalty killer. He's, I think he fits in. He allows them to move Max Domi to the wing where he should be playing. And he's got a year left in his contract. And because of the deal, they gave up a first, but they retained, Philadelphia did, half of Lawton's $3 million salary. And they got draft picks, a couple mid-round picks back, and they had to give up Nikita Grubyankin, who I like as a player. I think will be an NHLer, but they didn't give up Minton, Cowan, or Danford in that deal. So that was a victory, and then that allowed them to make the deal that I've been advocating for years. And I even mentioned the night before the names of Rasmus Ristolainen and Brandon Carlo. I didn't think it was possible, but when Boston decided to go full sell mode, Brad Treliving was there to make the deal.
We didn't talk much about Brandon Carlo being a candidate to come to the Maple Leafs
because we didn't think Boston was going to go full sell. I mean, I looked at right-handed defenders, and he was one name. Ristolainen was another name. There were a couple others out there that were long shots, like Brandt Clark, but I didn't think LA was going to trade Brandt Clark, and I think the Leafs and Colton Parayko, but that would have cost an absolute ton, and then he got hurt. There were, Connor Murphy, which I think would have been a disaster because I think he stinks. I don't think he's a good player at all. But they were clearly looking for that big right-handed defenseman. And if you saw last night, even though he was on the ice for the first couple goals, I think the fit for Carlo with Rielly is a perfect fit. He's the stay-at-home physical guy, sort of like Luke Shen, long reach, can penalty kill, experienced. And he's got 2 years left in his contract because they retained a little bit of salary at less than $4 million. So now you look at the Leafs defense, then there's no complaints here now. Rielly, McCabe, Ekman-Larsson, Tanev, and Carlo. And then your number 6 could be probably Philippe Myers or or Simone Benoit. So that's a pretty good defense. What we have to worry about, Norm, is the rest of the story.
Yeah, 3 straight losses, now 4 points behind Florida, who is on an unbelievable run in the Atlantic Division. I think the Leafs may have lost their opportunity to take the division crown.
Not yet. Not
no,
yet.
You don't think so?
No, I mean, they have a game in hand. And I think I saw that they have the easiest schedule in terms of the winning percentage of their opposition. Now, that brings up another thing we know that we've railed about for years: the Leafs beating the teams they should beat. They have a game in Buffalo in less than 2 weeks. They need to kill the Sabres because the Sabres are not a good team right now, but we know that the Sabres always get up for the Leafs, no matter how bad the Leafs or the Sabres are. That's a game that, they have trouble winning. They have to win the games they need to win. And I think they play Florida 1 or 2 more times. So, it's not like 4 points at the bottom of the standings. They have one team that they have to catch right now, and it's Florida. And I think they can do it, but they have to start playing better than they're playing right now. And God, do they need Chris Tanev back.
Yeah, absolutely. Any update on him?
They said the possibility is he may play on Monday against Utah.
Well, he can convalesce as long as he needs to. The idea is a healthy Chris Tanev for the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Same for Austin Matthews, right? Now, playing out the string of games with purpose will be a nice test for the Leafs to ramp themselves up for the ultimate test, and that is the playoffs. This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Oak Ridge Ford. March is traditionally a busy month in the car business. Even with all of the tariff scares, Ford's in a decent position, especially for F-150s. The leasing opportunities on Canada's best-selling vehicle is amazing right now. Low rates, great residuals. I can get you into the F-150 of your choice at a reasonable payment. All you got to do is get at me at Norman Oak Ridge Ford. And again, without our sponsorship, Mike and I are not doing this podcast. So we're not going to give Brad Treliving credit for being super creative and going outside of the box to obtain Brandon Carlo due to the fact that Boston just basically said we're open for business. When it comes to the way he was thinking of moving Mitch Marner to Carolina and bringing Mikko Rantanen back, signing him up, and there you go, getting the replacement for number 16. I mean, that was pretty interesting. And I know he wasn't the only guy inquiring about Mikko Rantanen. He ultimately ended up in Dallas. But the fallout from that and the word getting around that Mitch Marner vetoed the deal, as is his right, may reverberate in a negative way, not only down the stretch through the playoffs and potentially through the ending of the relationship between Marner and the Maple Leafs. Your comments on that possibility?
Mitch Marner has set himself up to be the Matt Sundin of 2025 if he leaves.
Right.
Because he has every right in his contract to use the no-move clause to block a deal. But clearly, the Leafs are – I think the Leafs are frustrated the fact that, they basically have not been able to negotiate or do anything with Darren Ferris, Marner's agent. At this point, they basically have stuck to, we'll wait till the end of the season.
Yeah, but Ferris likes to wait until July 1st, does he not?
Yeah, that's wonderful. But the whole thing here with the overture, and apparently it was, the Leafs contacted, like 20 teams contacted Carolina about Rantanen.
Right. And
Eric Tulsky's response at first was Marner. So Brad Treliving goes to Marner or goes to his agent and says, we have this opportunity here. What would you think? And he says, no, I want to stay in Toronto. So that ended. Now, that didn't end it for the Leafs because then apparently they wanted Matthew Nyes and 2 first-round picks. Like Dallas traded Stankoven and 2 first-round picks. And the Leafs did not want to do that because their idea here is to have bigger forwards with Nyes and Rantanen. So that didn't happen, and then the Leafs.
Mike, just to interrupt you. Sorry for doing that.
No problem.
If there was going to be a deal with Marner going back to Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Would the Hurricanes only have done that had they been able to sign Marner?
Well, I think they knew that they couldn't sign Rantanen, so the prospect of them being able to get Marner and then offer him the 8-year deal and negotiate with him. I mean, they knew that Rantanen was a closed book. He was not going to sign in Carolina, and they were looking to get the most that they could for him. And they allowed Dallas to negotiate with him in terms of a contract.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming they would have allowed Toronto had Marner said he would go. Whether the Leafs, I think the Leafs would have offered him as much as they wouldn't offer him as much as Matthews, but they would have offered him maybe a little bit less. But I mean, that never came to pass because Marner used the no move clause, and then the Leafs were not going to trade Nyes because Nyes is 22 years old and already on the top line, and I think they're going to sign him to a long-term extension. And then they apparently offered 2 first-round picks in Minton and Cowan, and Carolina were not interested in players that had not played in the NHL. They wanted to get an NHL player back. So it fell apart initially because Marner would not waive the no move clause. And now, let me make myself clear. He has every right to do that. But the stench of that, I think the thing communicated by the Leafs to Marner that we want, our first thing is we want to sign you.
Right.
We want to negotiate, and then sticking to we'll talk after the season. That's what happened. That's what happened with John Tavares in Long Island. He had a no move clause. He didn't want to leave Long Island, and then the way it played out in the leading up to July 1st, and I think there was the 5-day negotiating period at that point. He was getting offers from San Jose for $13 million and accepted 11, which was a significant raise for him to go back home. I mean, that's a hometown discount.
Right.
If Mitch Marner does not, and I'm not saying go for less than what Nylander has, but with the cap going up, they have to maintain a situation where Marner makes less than Matthews. If he asks for more than Matthews, I think the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think Brad Treliving will tell him, see you later.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, right? You've mentioned it. Mitch Marner's right not to go with the idea of the trade. Said he wanted to stay in Toronto. But what's this going to look like when free agency hits and he's demanding money that the Leafs just can't pay? Like, if you want to stay in Toronto, you do what you can on your part to come to terms on a major salary, obviously a salary increase for him that is also team friendly if you really do care. So you're right, Mike, there will be a stench. And there was a bit of a détente between fans and Marner in terms of a relationship because of the kind of season he's had. This certainly doesn't lend to a stronger bond between player and fan base. It actually weakens it. I hope it's not a distraction down the stretch because the team has a lot to accomplish. Marner has a lot to accomplish. And, in unison, the player and the team can do things they haven't done before. And for his sake, they had better. This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. OakRidgeFord.com. Like the content. Subscribe to the channel. Michael, Matthew, and OG. After learning of Marner's veto, I've had enough with this arrogant, egotistical, self-centered pond hockey boy. Now, Michael Matthew has never really liked Mitch Marner. So I'm not surprised that he is sharing those sentiments with us.
Well, and the funny thing is he played a great game yesterday against Colorado, scored 2 goals, was flying all over the place. And then in the third period, and it wasn't on purpose, but he tripped Martin Necas, and that led to the game-winning goal for Colorado. See, this is the thing. Mitch Marner has an opportunity to put the Leafs in a position that the Leafs probably don't want to be in. If the Leafs have success in the playoffs and they go to the conference final or the Stanley Cup final, then he probably can name his price. and they'll sign him. And it was if he perform, and I'm putting him performing at a high level with them advancing. If he has a great playoff, he puts the Leafs in a position that, basically, okay, what do you want, Mitch? Right. And if it's $1 below Matthews, then I think they'll go for it. But if they lose in the first round, he's toast.
And he's still going to get paid, Mike, and you know that.
He's not going to get paid by Toronto. That's the thing.
Right, but someone will pay him a lot of money somewhere, and there will be a lot of suitors. Flowers. They dangled Mitch to the Canes. How's that for initial setting for negotiations? Marner sees how he's perceived in the front office. He's gone. Would Mitch Marner be right to take that request as a bit of disrespect to him?
No, I don't know. I don't know if he does or doesn't, because the reason that they were willing to do that is because of the intransigence of Darren Ferris and Marner. They basically said, we don't want to negotiate through this during the season. If you remember, William Nylander and his agent, they negotiated into the season. The Leafs communicated they wanted to keep Nylander. The Leafs have communicated they wanted to keep Marner, but Darren Ferris, his strategy, as you said, is, okay, we'll talk about it after the year. And then basically the team is under the gun. Right. And you've got until just before the July 1st to sign the player for 8 years. I think right now, if you took a poll, maybe we should do a poll. If you took a poll of what the likely outcome here is, whether it's sign and trade, meaning they sign him to an 8-year deal and then trade his rights to whoever, or him going to unrestricted free agency, I think it's probably, he would benefit from the sign and trade because he would get an 8-year deal someplace else. But the odds of him getting an 8-year deal in Toronto all depends on what they do in the playoffs and how he plays in the playoffs. And there are so many teams out there, and I don't think he'd want to play in Boston or Philadelphia or the Rangers, but they have tons of cap space. Utah is looking for a star player. That would probably, LA. There are a number of teams out there would probably make him the highest paid player in the league. And you know what? That's nuts. He's a good player. He's a star player. Right. Don't get me wrong, but he can't make more than Austin Matthews on this team. And if he wants to make more than Austin Matthews, it's probably going to have to be someplace else.
How vindictive is he going to become between now and whenever he makes the ultimate decision, or when this team and this player cut ties? That'll be interesting to see. Quietly, I can't imagine the Marner camp's too happy about things. It's the little man syndrome that should have been washed away a long time ago. Now, if he plays with reckless abandon and with more to prove and continues to score goals and get points, the byproduct is his team will most likely have success. So that in and of itself is a good thing. Alchemical Fitness. The Leafs have nothing to gain for making Marner a villain. There's a lot of misinformation out there in every arena of life. Hockey is no exception. He didn't waive his no trade. He's still a part of the Maple Leafs. Mm-hmm. The Leafs have bigger fish to fry right now, and that's getting back on track after a 3-game losing streak.
Let me because everybody in the chat wanted to talk about Morgan Rielly, and I will admit that he is not having a good year right now. I have some ideas of why he's been off. But everybody's like, he needs to go. He sucks. It's like, he doesn't suck, and he's not going to go anywhere because he has no move clause. He's a leader on this team. They need him to play better. He was on the ice for the first 2 goals against Colorado. I'm sorry. I think he's a good defenseman. He's not playing well right now, but they need him to play well. And I think the Carlo acquisition is going to help, because now you have a stay-at-home defenseman. And remember, he's had the most success in his career when he's had a guy who was a stay-at-home guy playing with him. And that was, say Ron Hainsey. He's never had a defenseman at the level of a Tanev or a Carlo to play on the right side. And I think that helps.
Look at Jeremy W. From out east. Rielly needs to go. Where's he going now? Where's he going now? The Leafs just acquired a guy to play with him or try to make him better. Where's he going?
He's not.
Go where?
I mean, okay, you can be dissatisfied with the way he's playing. He's not going anywhere. He's got a no-move clause, and he wants to stay in Toronto. He's got a young family. He's from Vancouver. If there was a possibility of him getting traded to Vancouver, maybe he would accept that. He's not going anywhere, and they need him to play better.
Maybe he's in decline, Mike. Maybe he's in decline, and we maybe I don't know why why not?
No, I mean maybe, but I don't think. I mean he was 2012 draft, so he is 31.
Right.
I mean, and he's not had any major injuries in his career. I just think he's somebody who is just not having a good year right now. And Mike V says he'll be gone in the summer. Book it. Okay. If you got an inside source, that's wonderful. I'm telling you right now, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he probably would admit that he's not playing at the level that he wants to play, but I think he can improve. And if you remember the 1 year when he got hurt and he played okay during the regular season, not great. He had a great playoff. So a great playoff redeems everything. Right now, he seems to be going through the motions. I do think that the Carlo acquisition and him being able to maybe jump into the offense is more of a possibility. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. The OGs and Cobbers have their opinion.
Yeah,
in general. And Mike, you're typically the contrarian to that opinion. And I see it all the time with the shorts that I create and put out on YouTube and TikTok. The vitriol coming at you and me sometimes for having an opinion that isn't typically shared. I don't understand that. Right?
Yeah,
we all love that. We all love the Maple Leafs.
They're invading my territory here, Norm. Usually, I'm the one who picks the one guy and rips him to shreds. They're like, you're taking my thing here, guys. So stay out of my lane.
Okay, how would
Don't worry, I'll get to somebody who I'm gonna criticize in a minute.
Well, we all know that. It's not Ryan Reeves. Thankfully, he is out of harm's way now because he's not with the team. But there is somebody else that you're not exactly disgruntled with, but you think is overblown in terms of people's impression of him. We'll talk about that in just a second. So if you're grading Brad Treliving and what he did at the deadline, what grade would you give?
I'd give him an A-. I think Carlo was the right shot defenseman that they needed. They needed the third line center. I think they paid a little more than I thought they would need to for Carlo. But the thing with Carlo is it's 2 more years. And
Edward Lee, Carlo is not the answer. Then who?
Right. I mean, okay, say it in the chat. Who is the right shot defenseman that you wanted? Because clearly they needed a top 4 right-handed D who was physical, and Carlo fits all those. Now he's not an offensive player, but tell me who you think they could have gotten.
Right.
All the rows were aligned here. Boston was selling. He had term. They were willing to give up a first-round pick and a prospect to get a defenseman. Mm-hmm. He's physical with a big reach. He can penalty kill. He can play 20, 22, 23 minutes a night. Who was it? Sloth? Who was the guy? Let me know, because I'm saying that, like, there was Ristolainen. There was, if you wanted to go cheap, there was a guy like Henry Jokiharju with Toronto, with Buffalo. There were a few. Luke Shen. Luke Shen cost a 2 and a 4.
Right.
A 2nd and a 4th round pick.
Prices were high, Mike. We wanted deals to be made. We've made deals. We've augmented the defensive group, found somebody who might be able to light a fire under Morgan Rielly's ass in more ways than one. Mm-hmm. And you get a third line center who's got some toughness. He's a Toronto boy. Here we go, and it's not good enough. Little Ramen, why did we trade for Scott Laughton? I would rather have Grebenkin in the lineup. Really?
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Grebenkin. I think he's going to be an NHL player. He's not an NHL player right now, and that's the whole point. I mean, they're trying to go for it, and they think that the missing piece was a third line center who could do a number of things. And I'm not a big Laughton fan, not because I don't like him, but because I think the price tag on him was ridiculous. But if you look at the trade, that Seattle and Tampa Bay made with Yanni Gourde, which was 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick. They got Bjorkstrand too, but that was a price that was ridiculous. Brock Nelson goes for a top prospect and a number 1 and I think a number 2. So unless you were going to go sort of under the radar like Jake Evans, but he signed in back with Montreal, or Luke Cunnin, who went to Columbus. Lawton was the only guy left, and for the fact that he was the only guy left, I think they paid a price that was reasonable. They got them to retain 50% of the salary. They got 2 draft picks back. Like I said, I like Grabyankin. I mean, I think next year he could be a 4th liner in the NHL. I compared him to Ivan Barbashev, but I mean, it's down the road. It's probably 3 or 4 years. So, I mean, the window here is now, and the trades that they made were now trades. Do you think they wanted to give up Fraser Minten? They loved Fraser Minten, but they knew that they had to give up. And what this tells me, Norm, is Easton Cowan will be the Marner replacement on the Leafs next year. He will, if Marner leaves in free agency, Easton Cowan makes the Leafs and probably play. And I don't know if he plays in the top 6, but he will be the guy who plays on the right side if Marner leaves. If he doesn't, he probably goes to the Marlies. But they kept Easton Cowan and kept Danford and decided, and maybe Boston, that was the price they had to pay for Carlo, but they needed that right shot defenseman badly.
Hey guys, if you're in the chat, like the content, subscribe to the channel, share what we do with your friends. It's a difficult dance for any manager in professional sports at a time when they're trying to make the team better and risk losing out on opportunity in the future. It's never good enough. Let's face it, Mike, every player is overpaid, and just about every deal that was made before the trade deadline required some kind of heavy premium to get that transaction done. And here we are, a 3rd-line center brought in. Some might argue if Scott Laughton's better on the wing, he could. I like guys who are interchangeable and can do it all. And who knows what's going to happen when the playoffs come around. And you bring in a big body back there to play with somebody like Morgan Rielly, who does need a spark. When we were going over the notes for the show, Mike, you wanted to talk about your buddy Anthony Stolarz, who, by the way, was overwhelmingly chosen as the playoff Game 1 starter by the OGs on the community portion of the Leafs Convo channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts now?
After watching that game, maybe we should take that poll again. This is the thing. I had a friend message me and said, "You just hate Stolarz." I'm like, no, it's not that. It's the fact that I know he's not a number 1. And if you go into the playoffs with him as your number 1, I mean, there's a reason why he's, I think, 32 years old and he's never been a number 1. He's had injury issues his entire career. And, he was out for almost 2 months this year. So with a knee injury. Now, since he's come back, I mean, I know that he's allowed 2 goals or less in 3 games. Then he goes in, lets in 5 yesterday. And of those 5 goals, I think 4 were on him. So it's like, everybody is so, you know what this is? This is Jack Campbell 2.0.
It's not the easiest place to goaltend, though, Mike.
I know, but my point is that everybody's looking for the savior between the pipes. We knew that Freddie Anderson wasn't the answer, so Jack Campbell comes in and has this great year, and then he folds in the playoffs. Now you got Joseph Woll, who is the pseudo number 1. He gets hurt at the beginning of the year, and Anthony Stolarz looks great. And all of a sudden now, okay, we got to go with Stolarz. He's gonna be the one. You overplay him, and then he gets hurt. And that's in that, unless the plan here is for the Leafs to go with a goaltending tandem in the playoffs, which never works. I think hey, I'm surprised nobody in the chat said, well, Joseph Woll sucked in Vegas. Yeah, he did. But our goalie's not allowed to have bad games. Isn't this a good situation to have for the Maple Leafs? One of your goalies sucks. Put another guy in and let him get hot. Yeah. And then when he runs out of gas, bring the guy back in who's chomping at the bit to prove what he can do. Yeah. What the hell is wrong with that? This team has lost 3 games in a row. The last win they had was that sideshow in Pittsburgh. They played terrible defensively, and they were lucky to win.
And Wall was in net for that.
Wall was in net for that. They go with Stolarz against San Jose. They're up 2-0 in the third period. The tying goal, Stolarz, I still don't know what the hell he did. He sort of slipped, and I think it was a wraparound, and he couldn't get to the other post, so they tied it, and then they won it. They won it in the shootout. Okay, then they get jobbed. I mean, they get tuned up by Vegas. Vegas jumps all over them. Wall gets pulled after 3 goals, I think, on 7 shots. And then Stolarz plays the game that he plays against Florida. Florida. Now, one of the things is Tanev is not in the lineup. They're not playing as well defensively. Right. But they're also all of a sudden, Chris Tanev in the lineup doesn't make them all of a sudden be like the 95 New Jersey Devils. It's like they have to play better team defense, and all of a sudden it's sort of like this wanderlust that was going on during Sheldon Keefe every once in a while, where they just needed to score goals and play wide open hockey, and that doesn't win in the playoffs. Hmm. So Craig Berubé's got to sort of snap to and get them back playing playoff style hockey. But you also need your goalies playing playoff style hockey. And my assertion here is I know Stolarz cannot be a playoff goaltender. He won't be able to, handle a start every other night. And I think he's had a good year, but I think you saw the inconsistency last night against Colorado. We need to find out whether Joseph Woll can do it. Maybe he can't, but I think you have a better chance of advancing in the playoffs if Joseph Woll is the goaltender and plays the way he's done in the playoffs against Florida a few years ago and against Boston last year when he came in relief of Samsonov. If they don't go and they go with Stolarz, they might win a round, depending if they win the division, but I don't have any confidence they can win the Stanley Cup with Anthony Stolarz in that.
As of now, I think you and the fan base are going to have to agree to disagree. Your team, Wall, most of who we interact with on this channel are Team Stolarz. Spike 11, we respect Spike's contributions. Thanks, Spike, for being here again. Stolarz starts game 1 and 2. If he's good, he runs with it. Management isn't confident in Wall. How do we know that?
How do we know that? Yeah, they're playing him every other game. So if they have no confidence in him, they would play Dennis Hildeby or Matt Murray. I mean, then see, okay, Spike, I respect your opinion. You have your opinion. That's fine. No, it's wrong. That's wrong. I don't think they have. No, I've heard this stuff. Well, he's a quitter because he was injured. Do you want an injured goaltender or
he's a
healthy?
What's that referencing?
Well, Game 7. They think, well, he didn't play in Game 7 last year against the Bruins. He was injured. Okay, he's going to tough through it, right? Let's tough through it, and and then he gives up 6 goals because he's injured, and then tell me what happened. You know what I'm saying? He's damned if he does, and damned if he doesn't. What is he, Bob Bond from 1964? I mean, it's ridiculous.
But listen, the Leaf fans like to pit players and things and ideas against each other. That's what Leaf fans do, right?
I mean, I am not opposed. I'm not opposed to them doing a rotation in net during the playoffs. I just know it doesn't work. I mean, Boston thought about doing it last year. They played Swayman in Game 1. They played Ullmark in Game 2. They lost, and they went with Swayman the rest of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work. For you to win, you need a goaltender that plays every game and plays well. And that's the whole question here, whether they have a goaltender here that can play all the games and play well. And I think the odds are that Wall plays better starting every game than Stolarz.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the things the Leafs need to do down the stretch. Just
win.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, for sure. However, there are a few things that come to mind. Get Chris Tanev healthy and prepare. He has to prepare himself, and the Leafs have to play him accordingly in terms of being ready to be the guy that they need when the postseason starts. Austin Matthews finding that scoring touch. 3 assists last night. He's not scoring a ton of goals. While you're talking, Mike, I'm looking in the chat, and there are some people who are critical of Austin Matthews, believing he's just not the same guy. Well, he's not. He's had an injury-plagued season, still putting up decent numbers when all things are considered. But, getting him into a place where some of that magic is rekindled Morgan Rielly with Brandon Carlo, maybe that will be the straw that stirs the drink for him, and he can have a bit of a resurgence. The two goaltenders playing off each other, being impressed with both styles of play, both players when they get an opportunity to get between the pipes. And, make it tough for Craig Berube to, pencil in the game one starter when the playoffs roll around. What else comes to mind, Mike, in terms of this team getting prepared for what really has to be a lengthy playoff run?
I mean, I think in the immediate next few games, I mean, there's going to be a settling in period with the players who have been acquired. You saw that Lawton fit in on a third line with Bobby McMahon and Max Domi. There was some moving around, and I think, once they started in the second period, Colorado dominated them, so they started moving things around. And Nick Robertson, I think, actually, he got moved up to the second line. So Berube's going to toy with combinations. I think he's going to settle, like I said, once Tanev comes back. I think it'll be Tanev and McCabe again as the shutdown pairing. I think it'll be Rielly and Carlo, and then their third pairing will be Oliver Ekman-Larsson playing the left side, which he should. I don't think he's great on the right side, along with either Philippe Myers or Simone Benoit. So I think that's a pretty solid defense, and they need to get that defense straightened out and let them play and let them get familiar with each other, because that, familiarity, especially in the playoffs, is a necessity. They need Austin Matthews to score like Austin Matthews. I just don't think we're going to see that. He is contributing. He's playing great. He's setting up plays. He's got a lot of assists lately. He's not scoring a ton of goals, and I don't know whether that that's because of the injury or just a slump, whatever. But this team needs Austin Matthews to be Austin Matthews in the playoffs, and they need who scored 2 goals last night? John Tavares. John Tavares has shown up this season. He has. He's been great, and he wants to stay in Toronto. And they asked him the same question about Mitch Marner that they asked Mitch Marner yesterday, and he said, "I'm open to negotiate during this." He wants to stay. So I think what they're trying to do is put a little pressure on him to take less. They want to pay him less after paying him $11 million in like the twilight of his career. And he's having a year where on the open market, he probably would make $7.5 million.
He's a point per game, 26 goals. He's on pace for over 30, maybe 35, the way he's going right now.
Yeah. And right now they don't have an answer in terms of a number 2 center. Maybe down the line they will. Maybe down the line, if Marner leaves, that the $11 million is freed up from him, is spent on another center like a Sam Bennett who might hit the open market. Jets go as a troll. He's just like, Christ Almighty. I think he would say Connor McDavid is on the decline. Everybody's on the decline. Everybody's getting older. It's like, come on. Geez.
Are we reading too much into the fact that Matthews has many more assists than he has goals? Are we reading into that the wrong way, or do you believe there is something to that? Maybe there's a physical thing that's holding Matthews back from, just being as assertive as he has in the past, because the guy is just a bona fide sniper. Traditionally a goal scorer. Right. This year he's putting the puck in the net, but not at the same pace. And are we just reading into the fact that it's just hasn't been the kind of year we've seen from him in the past? Or is there something to this?
Everybody's putting 2 and 2 together. Everything is shrouded in mystery when it comes to Matthews' injury. We don't know exactly what it is. We don't know how it's affecting him, and we can only see the results. He's not scoring goals. He's doing everything else well. He's on the penalty kill. He's played well as a 2-way forward. He's great on puck battles. He's getting the puck to Marner and to Matthew Nyes, who's going to end up scoring 30 goals. So, I don't think he's not the Matthews of last year. He's not the Matthews of scoring 69 goals.
That bar has been set so high, he may never get back there, and that's okay.
No, but if he gets 45 to 50, remember, he's on a pace right now where he's going to score, 30, 32, 33. I mean, that's not Austin Matthews. That'll be the lowest goal total of his career. So, I mean, everybody's going to ask why. And I think the most logical reason is the injury, whatever it is affecting him. So, maybe he doesn't, maybe he's looking more, he's being deferential in terms of his on ice performance, in terms of, I'll feed it to Nyes, I'll feed it to Marner. Well, that goes only so far. If they score goals, that's great. But I think in the playoffs, they're going to need him to score like Austin Matthews can score.
Well, he was a focal point last night, only 2 shots. And anytime he gets 5+ shots in a game, there's a good likelihood that he's going to score a goal. So, I mean, again, by any means necessary, and if he's contributing in a positive way, setting players up, being a 3-zone, 200-foot kind of hockey player, that's what he needs to do. And if he's generating a little bit of extra fuel in the tank that will be expended when it means the most, we'll be here for it. Mike, how do you want to wrap the show up?
I was just going to say, I will not be surprised that the day after, or maybe in the week after the end of the regular season, Austin Matthews has surgery on whatever the problem is. And it probably will keep him out till training camp, or maybe through training camp. But whatever it is, it's something that needs to be addressed. He went to Germany to have it looked at. So, and now he came back and he's been playing regularly, but the Matthews that we've seen through the 4 nations and now is a great player, but he's not the Austin Matthews of last year. So, I mean, we'll see. They need a win against Utah on Monday, and they need to keep pace with Florida. And I think it's imperative, absolutely imperative, that this team wins the Atlantic Division, because they go into that 2-3 corridor of hell with Florida and Tampa. I think it's a 50-50 proposition if they get out of the first round.
You mentioned Florida, and we should probably get out of here. But Brad Marchand on that team with a bunch of guys who play with their hair on fire, is that just more fuel to the fire? And they're on a 6-game run right now. Do you see that subsiding at any point? And how do you think Marchand affects that team?
Well, he's not going to play until the playoffs, I believe. He's on LTIR right now. He's week to week, so I think we're not going to find out his impact until the postseason. But he's Marchand. He's it's going to be weird seeing him in a orange jersey. But when they throw a rat on the ice, that's a celebration of him. I mean, that's a team. I think if Toronto fans could say we trade, and of course they won the Stanley Cup, but how much would they be enthused by Bennett or Kachuk or Marchand or Barca? I mean, that team is just full of greasy, dirty, great players. Right. And some of them that they had in the organization a long time ago, Carter Verhaeghe. But they trade. Thank you, Lou. They traded him to the Islanders, and he ends up on the Panthers.
How is he supposed to know that he?
No, nobody's supposed to know. But you didn't even give the kid a chance. They traded him before he played a game in the AHL, and he went a few different places, and then won a cup with Tampa, and now has ended up in Florida, and now he's a really good player. But I'm just saying, the part of this game is talent recognition. Part of this game, Florida is an impressive team. Right. They're going to be a tough out. I would rather, if from the Leafs perspective, they play Tampa in the first round and those teams beat the crap out of each other. That's what the Leafs have to hope.
Well, you'd like to see the Leafs win the division. I don't know how the hell they're going to do that with Florida playing the way it is, wanting to defend its championship, and the Leafs having so much to prove when it comes to winning games when they matter the most. There's no better time than now to right the wrongs of the past and give fans a new impression of what you're about. We'll leave it with All Chemical Fitness. All judgment should be on hold until the playoffs. Regular season doesn't mean crap for the fans. Next 20 or less games are just the launching pad to get this team gelling with the new players in the system. Well said. Well said. I couldn't have said it any better myself.
Yeah, I think that there's something to say about that, but I wouldn't say that the regular season is meaningless because, again, who would you rather play in the first round, Tampa or Florida or Columbus, Detroit, Ottawa. I'm not sure about the Rangers, but if you win the division, you play the top wild card team,
right?
And that will be an easier matchup. Won't be easy, but it'll be an easier matchup than playing one of the Florida teams. And I just say it's like, okay, they had an easy matchup in the Canadian division and they lost to Montreal. Well, okay, go out and beat the team. It's whoever they play in the first round, you have to go out and beat them.
Right.
And this team with this core has not shown a propensity for beating other teams when it counts. So we'll see if that happens.
3 straight losses into Utah on Monday. Then it's back home for 4. The Panthers will be waiting for them. Interesting times ahead. New players, guys with lots to prove. And maybe this is the beginning of Mitch Marner's final run with the Maple Leafs. How long it lasts is anybody's guess. Let's hope it's longer than shorter in the end. Mr. Augello, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it very much. Thanks again to our sponsors, Oak Ridge Ford. If you're looking for a vehicle, myself or the staff at Oak Ridge Ford would be very, very enthusiastic about helping you. At Norm at Oak Ridge Ford is how you can get at me on Instagram, and I'll get you set up. For Mr. A, I'm Mr. J. Enjoy your Sunday. The Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford is out.